Hello, can you please tell me your name?
My name's Melinn. I'm a protective mom, and I'm here to get our children back and to stand up for moms' rights all over the world who are losing their children to family courts.
And who is this here in the picture?
This is my son, Melinn. He lived with me most of his life, and when he turned 17, he wanted to go live with his dad. He wanted to live with his dad all his life because he had money, and I have a broken back and can't work. So he went to live with his father and had access to alcohol and guns and ended up committing suicide due to the abuse in the home.
Oh my goodness, what kind of abuse was he suffering from?
Mental. I know that with his father there was some physical. He said that he got rough with him. He actually called me to pick him up one time when him and his father got into a physical fight. So, they offered him a car and a cell phone if he would come back.
Well, what kind of abuse are we talking about? Did you report it?
I did. I've reported all of the physical abuse. I've reported emotional abuse that they suffer under. It's been devastating. One thing that recently happened with my daughter, who is now living with her dad, he got custody because he said I couldn't physically take care of the children and because I didn't have money. So now I'm forced to pay the man who broke my back child support.
How could a judge do this? It would seem like if you tell the judge about abuse and you come in and you're honest, that the judge would listen.
The judge is not. He knows about the abuse. I've told him about it. At one point he threatened. My ex-husband that if there was any more abuse, he would remove the children from the home, and he would take it seriously. Once the judge found out I work with women and I'm a protective mom, he increased my child support to $1,300 a month when I only get $600 and something for disability, most of which goes to my ex-husband. He, for whatever reason, he thought I was faking my back issues. He thought I've had to prove all my medical issues over and over to him, even though I've been found to having told the truth every time. For whatever reason, he's very biased, and he doesn't even try to cover it up. He's put me in jail for 21 days for smoking a cigarette. He said that I should have sold the cigarette and sent the money in for child support, even though that's a violation of the federal law.
Wow. So how could a judge that's so biased against women get on the bench and stay on the bench?
Well, the county I'm in is Allegan County, and it's a fairly small county. Many of the times, there's not even two judges on the ballot. A lot of times, there's just one, and you really don't have an option. He had a lot of funding behind him, and used the fact that the judge in place, who was a fair and respectable judge, just slandered his name. And had tons of funding behind him, and he got the bench, unfortunately.
Do you think that there's any kind of corruption happening in the judiciary?
I know there's corruption, and not just with my case, with moms all over the world. The funding, you follow the funding, and it goes right back to, some of it's even government funding. There's nothing out there to help moms of abuse. There's nothing out there with these judges even to protect the children from abuse.
Well, I thought this is the United States of America, where judges are supposed to be fair and impartial.
I honestly believe that as well, until I was in the family courts. So it's unless you're a victim of the re-victimization in the family courts, you don't really know what's taking place. Our stories are so outrageous that I tell people, I know how crazy I sound when I'm telling you my story, because it is so unbelievable that, you know, a judge would turn over innocent children to somebody who's a convicted batterer, a convicted abuser, and it's happening every day.
Do you think that the judge simply thinks males should be able to do this?
I know he does. As a matter of fact, I've talked to several women attorneys who will not even practice in Allegan County because of this judge. Protective moms have been, you know, they've been trying to help the protective moms, and the judge just treats even the attorneys so poorly that they will not practice there at all. And they'll come right out and tell you why. They're in fear for losing their jobs to this judge. There's no accountability over the judges. The Judicial Tenure Commission doesn't always step in, and if they do, it takes at least a year's process. How many children are abused? How many children are dead in a year? My son's one of them. You know, it's taking place, it's happening. People need to open their eyes and see that this is not a problem that's going to go away. But these kids that are growing up in these abusive homes, what's going to happen is the boys are going to grow up and they're, you know, have, statistically speaking, most likely they will turn out to be an abuser themselves, and they're going to marry your daughter. So if you think this doesn't affect you, you need to open your eyes, because this is an issue that is a learned behavior. Abusers lack empathy. Abusers have a hard time even understanding what the average person does, and many times they're narcissistic, and that may sound, you know, a bit harsh, but that takes place. And a lot of times these people, these abusers, these batterers are abused as children, but when they become adults, they make the decision to either get help or to become an abuser themselves. My ex-husband was in counseling, and he was doing good, and he made the choice to break my back. And with my children right there, I had hairline fractures in my neck. I have, you know, all kinds of damage. Right now I have 5 herniated discs from it. I was missing a quarter of my face to rug burn. I had post-traumatic stress disorder. Back then there was not the help for DV like there is today, but it's improving, but it's not improving fast enough, because now what the trend is, the women can get out and get safety, but the children go with dad.
So this is really about child abuse.
This is.
Is it a war on women? Is it discrimination and bias against women?
Yes, I believe so. I think a lot of judges are funded through the Father's programs, and at the time that came about, it was needed. But right now, you know, good dads do not want to take their children out of their mom's life. They don't. They want their children to have a mom. They want their children to have somebody who's there to help them through what a mom helps them through. Mothers are natural nurturers. Now, that being said, no, I don't hate that. Good dads have a strong role in their children's lives. But at the same time, good moms do too. And it's went to the extreme, just like it was the extreme before, when mothers always got custody no matter what. So each situation needs to be looked at, you know, without the corruption. If there's any abuse in a case, you know, because of what we know through the mental health field, and I worked in the mental health field for years too, what we know is that someone who abuses their children, they're gonna, or their children's mom, especially in front of the children, they're gonna abuse their mom, you know, and the kids too. They encourage women to get out, and that's great. Everybody says get out. But right now, if I had it to do over again, I would have at least been there to protect my children. And that is, as a victim's right domestic violence advocate, that's the most horrible thing I can say. It makes my skin crawl to say that, because that's myself staying in abuse. But now my children are in abuse, and they've got no safety net in front of them.
So it's like being damned if you do and damned if you don't.
I think it's damned more if you don't. If you get out of this situation, like I said, you know, I could be there teaching my children and getting in them what they need and the love they need, and you know, what women do naturally, and what a lot of dads do naturally too. But when you when you're talking about abusers, it's a different story. You know, I'm not anti-men. I had the greatest father in the world. I love him to pieces. He was my best friend. But I am anti-abusers. And if somebody abuses once, they're going to abuse again.
Well, what do you think about the fathers' rights movement? Do you think that's really about fathers' rights, or is it more about male supremacists?
At this point, it's definitely not only about fathers' rights, but it's about abusers' rights. Because abusers are the ones utilizing these programs. The good dads work with the mom. The good dads don't fight in court. The issue is power and control and abuse. And when you have an issue of power and control, family court is a way for the abuser to continue to control his victim.
Really? How does an abuser do that in court? I mean, you're giving evidence to the court of the abuse. What is the father and his lawyers doing?
Well, first of all, he has a corporate attorney, and I'm representing myself. I can't. The judge has taken all my money for child support. All my disability goes to my ex-husband. And I have PTSD from my back being broken, and I've been dealing with that, but then I'm going into court, and it's not easy for me because the judge has thrown me in jail so many times. I'm up against something. You know, I can talk to other women and I can tell them what they should do, but when it comes to your own case, you're too emotionally involved to stand there and to deal with it, and it's very hard. And then, you know, on top of that, you're standing 10 feet away from your abuser. And
well, I thought when you're sent to jail or when your rights are violated that the court will appoint an attorney. Is that not the case?
even if they do appoint an attorney, basically the attorney tells you what's going to happen and what you're going to get because the judge has already decided before I went into court. This last time I kept my son when CPS told me to for his own safety, and I did. You know, I trusted that it would be okay if CPS told me to. They had already removed him from his father's home because he beat him with a compound bow, and he admitted it to CPS. So the judge intended to put me in jail for 45 days. Well, I created an event. I created a Facebook page that's called Kevin Cronin, a Judge Abusing Power. I've got a blog that's called Recall Kevin Cronin. And when I started to bring attention to it, he didn't throw me in jail for the 45 days he was planning to. But it's still traumatizing to walk into that courtroom knowing that you're going to go to jail.
How important is it for abused mothers and abused children to speak out to the public?
I think it's very important. And right now my son is in a more dangerous position than he's been in a long time because he has spoke out. He wrote a letter to the judge begging him to get him out of the home because of the abuse. He can't take his dad. You know, he swears at him all the time. He puts his fist up and threatens him. He doesn't, you know, the kids are in the room a lot of the times. According to the CPS worker, my 2 elder children now suffer from Stockholm syndrome because when they don't love their mom, their life is much easier with living with the father. Now, my youngest son is fighting and speaking out, and I'm so proud of him because he's speaking out and he corrected me. He said, "Mom, you help women and children. I love that." And I'm like, "Thank you, Isaiah." And he said, "Mom, I help women and children too, don't I?" And I said, "Well, Isaiah, when you get bigger, you will." And he said, "No, Mom, I told the truth to that lady, and I spoke up to CPS about the abuse. That means I'm helping women and children." You know,
what a courageous boy. How old is he?
He's 9 years old.
9 years old.
And I'm so proud of him, but I don't know how much longer he can hold up. He's under so much pressure that he can't take it.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid that, you know, suicide was Michael's only way out of the abuse. And I'm afraid that, you know, something's going to happen with my other children. Either their father hurts them and disables them like he did me, or, worse.
Well, after having a child choose death over living with an abuser, it would only be natural for you to be concerned. And wouldn't any reasonable person be concerned?
I would think so, but instead of stopping the abuse, they've continued it. And I really thought maybe that would wake them up to working with me, to allowing the children to have both parents' love and support, to be able to share with them. And instead, he's still encouraging hate. He's still encouraging them to disrespect me. In fact, he buys them things when they disrespect me. And it's, they're children. They're children, and they're in survival mode right now. I don't blame them. Hannah and Jonah, I love you with all my heart. And, someday you're going to see everything that was going on. And I'm proud of you that you're living through this and that you haven't taken the other way out.
Thank you for telling your story. Thank you very much.